بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا ومولانا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعلى أهل بيت الطيبين الطاهرين ولعنة الله على أعدائهم إلى قيام يوم الدين. Continuing the topic of obligations or taklif. We said that mankind has obligations. And now these are either religious obligations or things to do in their own life. For example, you have to go to work. You have to take care of kids. You have to, for example, go to school. These are all obligations, taklif. And we see throughout the day a busy person, one who is, doing what they're supposed to, they're usually busy doing something. Now, we as Muslims are trying to make these taklif and obligations easier for us so that we can do more, so that we can maybe in one day enjoy the obligations. We said that when God loves us, He gives us more obligations. The Hajjah will be coming, those who will be going to Hajj, they will have more obligations, a lot of difficulty in performing their Hajj, for example, or to some extent, not difficulty, but hard tasks, to do Rami, for example, to do Tawaf with all those people, the hot weather. So therefore we see Allah gives us obligations for a purpose, in order for us to submit, in order for us to attain goodness, or wholesomeness, something that is good inside those taklif. And also we have taklif and obligations of prohibitions and muharramat, that Allah wants us to stay away from corruption. For example, we see today, how many people are dying from alcohol abuse, drug abuse, drinking and driving, for example. How many dangers are removed from us just by these things being not allowed in religion? That you don't really have to worry, at least for ourselves. And maybe somebody else might crash into me, for example, but at least we are not worried about these things. So you see that Allah gives a command to take mafsada, corruption, hardship. And we said a very interesting point is this, is that some people think of religion as a lot of do's and don'ts and a lot of religious obligations. Say, oh, you guys are so strict, Muslims. You can't do this. Look at the Risala, for example. You have thousands of law. Did you ever count how many mas'ala there is in a typical practical Islamic book? I remember one of my friends, when we were young, he was getting interested to Islam. He said that one of his non-Muslim friends was becoming interested in Islam too. So he said, what should I do? What book should I give him? So he said, I gave him the Tawdih al-Masail of the Marja. I said, if you're interested in Islam, read this Tawzih al-Masail, for example, with 4,000 rulings, for example. So but yes, at that point, a person will be overwhelmed. At that point is too much. Even a lot of the reverts, I tell them to focus on learning prayer. That's enough work for you. It's Arabic, how many raka'at. When we are born Muslims, our parents have taught us, we learned, and the language is close. It's easy for us to learn. But a poor person, a poor person that is new to Arabic, new to Salat, new to Wudu, all these rulings, a lot of them say, I get overwhelmed. So what can I do in order to make these obligations easier for me? Now, one thing we talked about, which was interesting, was this. We said that, let's imagine if you don't do the religious obligations. You're free to do whatever you want. كل شيء halal, for example. You understand the hadith this way. Everything is halal. Go do whatever you want, for example. Would our life be easier or no? Actually, life would be harder. Momentarily, yes, life would be easy. I'd be happy. I don't have obligation. I don't have takalif. I can do whatever I want. First, day 1, it's fun. Day 2, day 3. But in the long term, I say, oh no, I've performed so many things that are haram, that inside these haram things, there's all these hardship. I gave the example of hijab, for example. Hijab is hard. It's not easy. Hijab is the symbol, one of the most important sha'a'ir and symbols of Islam today in the West, is hijab. We have sha'a'ir. The Quran mentions to us, whoever does ta'zeem or sha'a'ir, this is from taqwa al-qulub, is one of the symbols that you have a pious heart. We have many different sha'a'ir. There's many different acts in Islam that are necessarily not to be done privately. They're supposed to be done in front of everyone. Like adhan, for example. Like salat al-jama'at. Like hajj, for example. Can anyone perform hajj by themselves privately? The real hajj? No. And hijab is also one of them. That this day and age is one of the great signs and symbols of deen. Because if I go out not like this, but let's say I just go out with normal clothes, nobody knows I'm Muslim. Even with this clothes, people don't even know I'm Muslim, actually. They think I'm just, a clergy of whatever religion, for example. They still have to ask. Hopefully they'll think I'm Muslim, inshallah. But regardless, our actions, if we do not perform our obligations, we will run into more problems down in the long run. For example, hijab. Hijab is hard for a sister to wear. Okay, be free, day 1. Day 2, let the sun shine on your hair, let the wind blow in your hair. It feels good. Okay, day 1, day 2, day 3. They go to university, they take off the hijab. But before, hijab was a barrier for them. Any type of person wanted to speak with them, would speak with respect because they know this person is observing hijab. But now, God forbid, they don't have hijab. People approach her, talk to her, they want to exchange numbers, let's just say. And then they get into a relationship, for example. Now I'm not saying whoever doesn't have hijab gets into a relationship. I don't say that. But do you understand that it is a barrier for people to talk to you? At least that's one benefit. It is a barrier in the way people look at you. Because when hijab goes, now what type of clothes can I wear? What are the boundaries? Long sleeve, short sleeve. It keeps going. So therefore, you see, I leave one obligation which was hard for me, but now in the long run, I've ruined my life. Now I have, for example, a relationship with this person. Now they don't want to marry me. Now they do want to marry me. Now they're joking with me. All these different things that come in my mind. I'm just giving an example that life is much more harder now. I wish I had hijab, for example. So therefore, obligations to say that Islam is making life more difficult is wrong. Islam has obligations, but it's actually, what we said is giving you hayata tayyibah, a good life. And whoever does i'rad and removes themselves from the remembrance of Allah has a ma'isha, a life that is danka, tight, suffocating life. They might have a lot of wealth, but they're suffocating. So the obligations we have are to make and enhance and protect us, our honor, our lives, and have a better life. Today, in the next maybe 10 minutes, 15 minutes maybe, we'll talk about the essence of taklif. The essence of taklif is nothing but intention. Niyyah is the soul. The soul of obligation is intention. A lot of times we think that our obligations have to be completely fulfilled. If they're not fulfilled 100%, and we couldn't prepare the other ones, we tried, but we couldn't prevent it. We could not bring the other conditions. We think that it's all gone, it's useless. But actually, one of the purpose of obligations is that intention that you have, that Allah is watching you and wants you to choose Him over others, Him over other things. They say one of the awliya of God, they say that once he was tied into a small room that it had snowed in, and he couldn't perform the wudu or tayammum. He couldn't do wudu, prepare himself to do salat. He performed salat, he said to God, he said that, Allah, you have given me, very simple food my entire life. That was my rizq. I didn't say anything. Today I'm going to offer you a prayer that doesn't have wudu, doesn't have tayammum. I just think this is my obligation. Allahu Akbar, I perform it. Without any of the, wudu or tayammum, even though we have la salat illa bitahurin. We have narrations. There's no salat except with wudu. He performed it because, I don't want to, go off on tangent, but there is a debate if faqidu tahurain, if somebody who doesn't have tayammum wudu, for example, or ghusl, cannot do the taharat completely, should they even do salat or not? Can they even do salat or not? But anyway, so he acted upon, and he still did his salat. They say that this was the salat that counted the most, because this was when he was the most humble. I mean, again, the circumstances he didn't bring. He couldn't get wudu. He couldn't get tayammum. But for him, he just said, this is my command. Allah, I want to do what you want from me. And this is the essence. This is the ruh, the niyat of a'mal and taklif is this. Is that you try your best and Allah is watching you. Now maybe somebody, they're not, from a family that is very religious. Maybe somebody comes from a family that's actually against Islam. Maybe somebody is from a broken family, right? And it affects somebody, the way they behave, for example, or even their health, for example. They're in a very difficult situation, but their intention was good. Maybe they didn't rise, for example, become the great mujtahid of the time, maybe. But maybe Allah will give him the reward in the hereafter. Because his intention, he started here. The other people started here. But he made this much progress. He made, abundant progress from where he was. So therefore, Allah looks at that. Allah looks at the intention. So therefore, the intention, we understand, is more important than the amal, than the action. Intention is more important than the action. So when you look at obligations and taklif, you look at the obligations themselves, but inside that obligation, there is various amount of intention. You can't even, let's just say from 1 to 1,000, for example. 1 to 6,000. There's multiple levels of intention inside each amal. Therefore, we're reminded that don't look at every action as being small, because that small action might have a very pure intention. And we look at this for ourselves, we say, okay, we have very different, obligations. There are people that, I'm assuming many of them, some of them won't be going to the camp tomorrow, some will. But let's just say your intention to go to Kirama camp tomorrow. What is your intention? Someone is to be very comfortable, to have a very good time. Good, all right. It's good to have fun with the family. It's important to have fun with the family. Another person is, using it as a spiritual retreat to get close to Allah. I want to get close. I want to have increased brotherhood. I want to increase sisterhood. We want to, as a community, get to know each other better. And I want to learn. We have some scholars, for example. I want to learn from them. And therefore, my intention is Allah. So you see, the intention is much different. Another person, his intention is, I want to go there to serve. I want to go there to be a volunteer, which is one of the greatest intentions. Now, Muhaddith al-Nuri, they say, which is the teacher of Sheikh Abbas al-Qumi, said that there are 2 ways a person can get close to Imam al-Zaman, the Imam of the age. 2 very close ways. One, he says, is quoted that he said, is to help people, especially when one is in dire need. Help this person, and the Imam, you'll get close to Imam al-Zaman. Al-Ghawth, some say one of the titles of Imam al-Zaman is Al-Ghawth, the help, to help people, to assist them. So when you assist someone, you find out. Now some of us, we don't have that intention of helping. Some, I know, they look and investigate. They're always like, oh, who needs help, for example? What happened to this brother? What happened to this sister? Do they need anything? So one of the best ways to get close to the Imam of the age is with this intention. Is to help people. Then he says, he incorporates this, he says, and I'm not saying this because I'm saying it myself, but he says like to the Sadat, to help the Sadat, or Mu'mineen even better, to help people generally, then the Mu'mineen, the believers, and from them say the children of the Prophet, the dhurriya of the Prophet and his family. This will cause you to get very close to the Imam of the age, who the teacher of Sheikh Abbas al-Qumi, Sahib al-Mafati, Sheikh Muhaddith al-Nuri. The second, he says, is crying for Imam Hussein alayhi salam, another intention. Crying and connecting to Imam Hussein alayhi salam, a person, his intention, his connection will be very close to the Imam of the age. So again, when a person is performing an action, we in our day-to-day lives, we have so many things we have to do. So many things we do. For example, your intention to come to center. Your intention to go to Karama camp. Your intention to go to work. Your intention to spend time with the family. All of it is, good, as long as it's a good, action. But there are different levels, different maratib of intentions. And if you make that intention very, unique, very, you have it, exclusively for Allah, you have ikhlas, you have sincerity, this is the best action. إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ. Actions are a result of niyyah. Niyyah is more important, intention is more important than the action. So what if we truly were like this, that our intention really was to help people, our intention really was to go to places to serve. Some say that they went to ziyarat with, I'm assuming he was younger than Ayatollah Khomeini, Imam Khomeini. And they saw that instead of going to the shrine a lot, he didn't go to the shrine as much. He would prepare the food, prepare the things for the zawar that he was going with. And he thought that this is equal or more valuable. The khidmah to the zawar is more valuable than the ziyarat itself. Therefore, again, what kind of person are you? Do you have that intention that when you look at your community, you're always trying to help them, you're always trying to benefit them, or you're always expecting them to help you, for example? Or when you meet your brother in Islam or sister in Islam, you're saying, for example, okay, whatever is more convenient for you always, what is easier for you? Or maybe you would serve them. These things are very important. So that intention is something that I really feel when you see someone with this intention, you value them. It's very hard to pretend to have ikhlas a lot of times, to have sincerity. But you notice yourself from your own friends, or from yourselves, there are people that are always willing to sacrifice themselves, their family, for others. And that is niyyah. And the highest of this is to sacrifice and prepare and work for the imam of the age. One goes to work just to make money, just to pay payment. But one really works and says, Imam Zaman, I'm going to work for you. I'm going to work for Allah. I'm going to work for you. Yes, maybe I have a desk job. Maybe it's work in the family. But my intention is these children will be for you. These children are your soldiers. This is my intention. Or I go to work so that Allah can be pleased with me, so maybe I can learn a skill to help the community, to help the ummah. So we can speak about this topic a lot. I'm going to end with a very interesting story about someone that they call Sayyid al-Usara. Sayyid al-Usara. They used to call him this. He was a captive during the time when it was reported when Saddam attacked Iran, and many people came to defend their country, their people, to defend Islam from Saddam Hussein. And one person who was an alim, was a scholar, and was a sayyid, he also was captive. Now, imagine us. I want you to put yourselves in this situation. Imagine if we were captive in war. How frightening that is. Now imagine the Ba'athis, for example. Saddam soldiers got us. How terrifying that is. And the torture that was published, the different machines that Saddam had to torture people. So it's reality. From the marks of iron, from putting people in meat grinders, for example. Different intentions. So one of these people that was a captive, everyone at that time, a lot of people, it's like the akhirah, the verse of Quran, that everyone is thinking of themselves. You won't be thinking of your parents, your brothers, anyone. You're just thinking of yourself just to survive. They said one person was there who was an alim, and he would always volunteer. His intention was so sincere for the imam of the age, for Allah, that whenever anyone needed to be tortured, to be punished, he would volunteer and say, torture me instead. Torture me. He would volunteer. And they would become so upset because his akhlaq was so great. And this is kind of interesting for us to hear this. I'm just telling you this not for you to, act upon it. But they say even that hand of that person that would torture him, later on he would kiss. He had this very high level of akhlaq and tawakkul. So much so they say when somebody was forced to torture him, they would run away for 1 week and would be embarrassed to meet this sayyid. That I was forced to, torture you. Because humans are human at the end. Finally, they came to him and says, if you keep continuing this, we're going to put nails in your skull. We're going to hit nails and go in your skull. Later on, there's works about him, Sayyid al-Usara, that later on he showed his skull to his son, that these are the nails that they drew into my skull. One who would volunteer to be tortured on the behalf of his own brothers. So his brothers would get less torture. So therefore we see that if we are sincere, we will sacrifice our time, we will sacrifice ourselves for one another. Now, remember, this also means that we have to be balanced, we have to be fair. We have obligations, obviously, to our own family, to our own children. You have obligations at work, obviously, all these things. But, maybe tonight we can analyze ourselves and say, what kind of person am I? Am I one of those really who, we have obligations throughout, everyone has taklif and obligations, but am I really doing it for Allah? Am I really sincere with this niyyah? Because one of the best intentions is the intention of, having the best. La amal illa bin niyya. Imam Zainul Abidin alayhi salam mentions, there is no action except for niyyah. Inshallah, we can be of those who attain the most out of our lives before it is over, inshallah. Ya Allah, we ask you, because of the honor of Imam al-Zaman, our Imam, inshallah, grant everyone their hawa'ij. Make us of the mukhlisin, allow us to be of the sincere, inshallah. Allow our best action to be our last action, inshallah, and expedite the return of Imam al-Zaman with a salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa jafarja.